Is retail a dying industry or just horribly disrupted? Are retailers out of step with their online competitors, and what will become of their stores if we all shop online? The retail industry isn't dying, but it is going through some major changes, and it needs to adapt to a whole new world. The physical store won't be about driving transactions. It'll need to go old school, customer service, and provide the human connection that will always trump online. To talk all things retail, we brought in Brian Walker, the CEO and founder of the Retail Doctor Group. Welcome, Brian.
Angela, pleasure to be here.
Now, you are all things retail. We have said that. But, and I'm not going to show your age, but it's decades of retail experience. Come on. I mean, yes. I've known of your existence for decades, but
it's been quite a while.
And it's retail is very different to the way you started in it.
Absolutely.
Maybe.
Well, largely different because it was very much about a shop on every corner. Retailers grew through scale. Scale was about physical shops. It was about product down the pipeline, and it was about all the tenets of customer service. We went as customers largely in Australia to a shopping centre dominated environment. That's still the case. And shopping centres were really just arcades of shop upon shop. But you and I will talk today about the transformation, no doubt.
So, not winding back the clock, but there are insights that you have based on data of the snapshot of what retail was pre-COVID. I mean, it seems like we're going to measure everything from now on pre-COVID, during COVID, post-COVID. Yep. But pre-COVID, what was the state of the retail industry?
Well, the state of the retail industry is always a consequence of consumer confidence. And if I talk in terms of numbers, it was pre-COVID, last 12 months pre-COVID, it was about $330 billion in sales. We, however, had the distinction of being the third most over-shopped country in the world behind the United States and Canada. So we had something like 250 shops for every person per capita.
That's a startling figure when you think about it, because you would assume that retailers would know what a small market it is. And yet, do we shop that much?
Well, we do. And the dominating factors are the growth of shopping centres. Right. So the growth of communities, the growth of rail, the growth of shopping centres. We've got about 1,350 plus shopping centres in this country. And we have, as I touched on, this over shopping space. So what we started to see pre-COVID was the growth of online. Now, online was on average about 9% of that spend. So it was sub 30 billion, and very typically in low value ticket items, books and tickets and so forth, highly commoditised. But since COVID, what we've seen is a few things happen. First of all, online has grown to about 14% on average, but we spend an average of 4 hours a day on our smartphones, by the way, which is quite staggering, isn't it?
I feel like more than that.
Well, exactly, and we're huge pre-researchers. One trend pre-COVID was the growth of global retailers. So the Zaras, the H&Ms of this world, came into Australia.
And we celebrated that, right? Every time something like that opened, we went, we finally got them.
How good is this? That's right, and Costco and so forth. So if you're a local-based retailer, particularly, you were starting to feel the pressure from online, from cautious consumers, economic cycles, globalisation. So already the world was starting to change from what was to what is. The great accelerant has been COVID.
So it's escalated things in a different way. Not to jump backwards, but you mentioned that pre-COVID online sales were about 9%. Did we all feel like it was more than that? Was that the PR image of it all?
100%. You would talk to people and they'd say, all I do is shop online. Now,
but the reality was not.
It was very, very different. Now, of course, it's an average, Angela, so some businesses were higher and they tended to be in that value commodity end. I mean, if we look at the great machine of Amazon, which if we get a chance to talk about, you know, it's $250 billion turnover, $1 trillion cap rate, 70% of its product is in lower value items, you know, so it's in that whole commoditizing space.
You're not buying a Tesla online, right? You turn up. You turn up for that.
In time to come, that will occur.
That's right, and they'll deliver it to you.
Correct.
Yeah, so
precisely.
you'll get
customized.
That's right.
You.
So if we look at, so now you said that online jumped during COVID to 30. Did you say 30?
Oh no, it's about an average of about 14%.
So it didn't even quite double.
No, but for some retailers, it's double, triple that.
It was a saviour to them, having that online platform.
And for some retailers that were forced to shut.
Completely, yes.
Completely. If they didn't have a good online offer, of course, they sat it out as best they could. The thing that we talk about now is this piece called Omni Channel.
Yep.
And Omni Channel really means I've got physical stores and I've got an online network and I've got a good social media platform. And you see the really savvy retailers doing this. So when we talk now, we also talk about coverage and community. These are important aspects that retailers are adapting to.
Do you think, though, that that will take longer to flow through and see that difference in the big retailers who have really lost their community connection and their community spirit? It's the smaller retail that might get the opportunity to dominate now.
Yeah, we move into this sort of art of war stuff. And when we talk to smaller retailers, what are the central lessons here in this space? Do have an online presence. Do try to have simple software to capture that, custom CRM, we call it, customer data, online inventory, and have a very sharp point of difference. So to the SMEs of this world, that becomes vital.
And we pivot faster.
And we pivot faster. And we are seeing in our insights work, we're seeing a rise of the community through COVID, a rise of the high street.
Yeah.
The high street was pre-COVID about 15% of all retail, 85% done in the centres. And now we're seeing a bit of a rise to this local market.
What about the impact on the CBDs? I mean, that's been a very unique experience because CBDs have traditionally been what they call recession-proof, and suddenly they're not.
Yeah, well, that's right. There's something like 21 million people who live and reside in the 5 major cities in the world and who live in that central CBD. This is a big piece. This is a piece around, planners, tourist boards ultimately when that opens up, about survival for many precincts. We're working with some of our clients in that very space. It's very much about thinking about how to bring customers in, or more importantly, how to bring that offer out of the CBD.
Because they're going to have that challenge because, for instance, if we take the Sydney CBD, for instance, on average the data is 600,000 people come in and out of the city every day. Well, it's been a good 7 or 8 months since that's happened. And if the foot traffic's gone, Brian, how long before it will resurrect? Or do they anticipate it won't?
I think that we'll see some structural changes occurring, this idea of the hybrid office, this idea of how people will commute. All these influences will be hot on the town planners' lists. And the hospitality sector has been severely impacted upon by COVID. And in their case, many of them weren't able to achieve, JobKeeper and all those sort of government infrastructure reforms or rent abatements. So these are challenging times for the CBD.
Because they're coming to an end. So we know that in this month of October, the retail tenancies agreements are all going to start to either have to be uniquely looked at and considered and negotiated or not. So we're about to see now an influx of landlords and tenants maybe sitting down at the table.
Yep.
So if we consider that, there's been a change in foot traffic, that there's been a shift to online, do you think the online will pare back?
So let's touch on that.
Yeah.
Yes, I do. The first principle of retail is that it's a social activity. And we are, generally speaking, by instinct, social. So as a consequence, when we see the numbers that retailers have written in the COVID period, we do see still the large majority of it, huge percentage of it, done in the physical environment where they're able to open. So we do see migration back to the malls, back to the high streets, if you like. Probably not quite in the same number, and a far more educated consumer now, who's able to pre-research, go to their retailer of choice, be far more destinational, be more informed, and retailers have to adapt. So is retail dying as a quick comment? No, but boring yesterday retail, same old, is going to struggle.
That's interesting. So we've got shopping centres that are massive footprint. How are they going to look different?
Well, this is the big piece for shopping centres because they, as we touched on, house this retail environment. And what we're seeing with our retail shopping centre clients and retail shopping centres generally is the really clever ones are adapting. So maybe one quick segue is to talk about this simple split about time. So what we see increasingly...
And what they'll do in shopping centres, what people will do.
I think increasingly what we'll see is that people will value time more highly. So the simple split is to say time well used and time well saved. So, or rather time well used, time well spent, I should say. So time well used will be that we get our Woolworths home delivery, we get our Uber Eats. It's all that commoditised. We watch Prime and we get our Amazonian delivery, yeah? time well spent is the experience. It's the day out. It's the shopping trip. It's walking into experiential environments, interesting educational retailers, and being part of the tribe of that. Well, really, shopping centres, to your question, Angela, have to aggregate that. They have to create experiences. And when we look at shopping centres around the world, the ones that have done well through this period and will continue to do well have really thought through this metric.
They already saw that ahead pre-COVID.
Precisely. Mixed use. They're thinking about how do they make their revenue other than just the classic landlord, I sell product, they clip the ticket, to thinking about, well, are we dry stores, storage units for retailers? Will we on-sell utilities? What's our role in this space? But most importantly, what experience will we create for our visitors?
Do you think even the big retailers will start to reduce their footprints in the big shopping centres? Traditionally they take, 2 or 3 levels, a big chunk of it. That will change?
Oh, absolutely. And I think we'll start to see this, and we're seeing it already. And it'll be a consequence of a few factors. It'll be the rents that are being asked. Can they be afforded?
Well, I don't want to not address that before the end of the interview.
Sure. It'll be around that retailer's Omni Channel strategy. So when we work with retail clients, it's around, in days gone by, to your first question, we'd say this retailer has all the attributes of becoming 100 shops or 300 or whatever it might be. Let's build that model. Now we say, you're probably 40 to 50 shops. It's big sort of flagship stores, hub, spoke stores, and this is what we need to do around the online, and then this is how we integrate it all. That's the thinking now.
It has to be about the integration,
Yep.
in whichever way that turns out that it might be,
Absolutely.
whether they do emphasise on a series of pop-up stores and have one master and move it around.
Yeah, that's another way. Pop-up is another way of doing
We've
it.
noticed that a lot.
Yeah, totally.
But where are the rents going to go, Brian? Because it's a big reality check now. This is the first time the playing field has kind of come up to the retailer where the landlords were here. It's kind of gone like this now, right?
Yeah, I mean, the pendulum is definitely turning. But we also look at, some of the operators who continue to build world-class shopping centres.
Mm-hmm.
And I class Westfield as an example of that, or Scentre Group. They will command ultimately what the market is willing to pay. And I remember years ago, a Westfield executive asked what the market was willing to pay. He said, whatever an individual is willing to pay. So we're always going to have that central tension. But I think we're seeing a lot more partnerships and collaboration between landlords and retailers. And if you look really closely at the last 10 or so collapses, inverted commas, there are a few things at play. One is retailers downsizing, and the shops they nominate to close were performing poorly before COVID.
That's right. You can't pin COVID on that.
Absolutely. The role of private equity,
yeah,
which has been a big investor in retail over the years, and there's been a bit of a case in some cases of PE basically going into their changing the basic equity of the balance sheet, and there's no real ballast in the retailer to perform through that. And then I think we've just got some retailers that are very undercapitalised.
And many who haven't moved forward with the times and haven't realised how they're adapting and what part they play.
If you and I had walked through some of the malls 10 years ago and today, we'd see fundamentally the same fit out, the same treatment, the same look. And now we've got the big online piece. And as time marches on, this will get even more challenging because the world of artificial intelligence is starting. Predictive technology. You and I, you could be at home watching Prime and Amazon, like an outfit someone's wearing, point your modem at it, and it'll be delivered next day.
I'll even be able to almost use an app where I can try it on without leaving the comfort of my own home.
You can. In fact, these smart mirrors are becoming quite common, and this is the point. So, in other words, what will the physical retail environment do that will get you or I off our couches?
So
basically.
I think it's
not that
clear.
You're ever on your couch,
no,
Angela,
I am, but not as much as I would like to be.
Yep.
I think it's clear though that retail has 2 components: the landlord and the tenant, and they're both going to need each other just as much.
Yeah. Yes. Entirely.
That's
entirely.
The
and if we look at some of the results that have been written just in the last couple of months, you do see some profitable results from retailers, particularly home-based retailers, home renovation, homewares, and so forth. To the point where some of them have announced increased dividends. Now, some of that has been by rental abatements and JobKeeper.
Yeah.
So the really the difficult spaces right now in retail are in fashion, hospitality. If you're on the other side of the ledger, anything to do with with home, right down to leisure wear, athleisure wear. They're having great seasons.
So someone's got to win somewhere.
There's always a winner and loser, ultimately.
And on that note, thank you very much for joining us today.
Pleasure.
To everyone watching us right now, I'm hoping you've subscribed to our YouTube channel, because that way you'll get an alert on every new episode that is put out by SME TV. To Piedmont Studio, thank you for making us look and sound great. To the SMEA Association for your work with us. Without you, we wouldn't be here. And of course, if you have any tips, tricks, comments or stories, you can send them straight to me. news@smea.org.au. I'm Angela Vithoulkas. This has been SME TV, and we thank Brian Walker, our guest today.
Angela, absolute pleasure.
Thank you.